Hey, welcome back to Unfiltered, presented by Hustle. I'm J SKYLINE,
I mean, James.
and this is the first 10. And for this week, we've jumped in and out a bit, but we're going to talk about the fantasy league that me and James run. It's gotten interesting, and I want to shout out the people that have helped in the league. This is our ninth year. We're going to get into 10th year next year. It's going to be interesting. I feel like next year we're gonna try harder to get once we get things more rolling to have more of that content for our 10-year anniversary. For what I've named, it's both our leagues, but it's my name, and y'all know why it's my name when I say it. The greatest show online. It is a spin on the greatest show on turf, which I still believe we are the greatest show online. But we had some controversy this week, and I feel like instead of just having to explain it through messages, I'm going to explain it through the crowd because I want to get y'all feedback. For the first time in 9 years, and it hasn't always been a pay league. I don't think we started paying until year 3.
Yeah.
But since we've been a pay league, this is the first time we've had somebody not pay before the playoffs. And we had decided this year. Well, I didn't. Well, I put up a poll. I put up a poll to ask the league, me, James, and the person who didn't pay. Obviously, we're not in the poll. And when the poll was, it was to give the first person a bye or to move the 9 seed into the playoffs. Ironically, the 9 seed would be myself because I would have missed the playoffs. And yeah, so it was a 8-1 vote because there would have been 3 people not voting. So that's how it went. It was a vote to put me in the playoffs. The first week of the playoffs was last week, and I won my playoff game against the 1 seed in the playoffs, which once we get done with this conversation, we'll have some more in-depth fun about how our league and the history of our league goes. But saying that, I am now in the semifinals playing against this man, which we will have more fun about that in a second. And we have another game going on the other side. So I just want to hear the feedback from people. Should I have made the playoffs? Should have just been a bye for the 1 seed? Again, I made a diplomatic approach. I did not have any petitioning. I didn't go to anybody and be like, yo, help me make the playoffs. It was nothing like that. It was just, hey, the playoffs happened. This is where we're at. It was a quick thing because I basically had been reaching out and making it obvious to the league and everybody like, hey, somebody hasn't paid. We need to get the person to pay. And we got to the point where I needed to just openly admit, like, hey, they hadn't paid. They made the playoffs. They can't be in the playoffs. That was not an option. Because, again, they have never approached me since October, and it was like the first few days of October, about not paying. So, again, the vote was the vote as it is. I will admit, before we get into the grand conversation, I don't really want to win the championship.
Better not.
Not in this way. Like, this won't feel the same as my other 3 titles.
Yeah.
So it's going to be that. So, again, how do you feel, James, about the situation?
I don't know. It's something that never came up before, so it was kind of like one of those. I mean, it was a good idea. Just make a poll, see what everybody did vote that should have voted, and that's what they wanted. Everybody wanted it. Everybody could have said no, or what, So it was kind of like one of those situations.
And Julius, the 1 seed, said yes in a message. Like he
Yeah, there
messaged
was-
in the
yeah.
poll that he personally was okay with it.
Yeah.
Which was Julius is outside of me. Honestly, like pure factually, Julius all time when it comes to if I looked it up, I'm assuming Julius has won the most games in our league history. Like
Probably,
games. Yeah. I have the most championships, but I think he's won the most games. He's number 2 in championships after last year. He's the only other person that has more than 1 title too. So for him to be okay with that, because I think he's won the most regular season titles. I'm almost sure he's won the most regular season titles. So yeah, like I said, I'm okay with what's happened. Again, I'm not like overly like, yeah, I deserve a championship or nothing like that. It just doesn't feel that way. And again, and I'll be perfectly honest, and I will find out right this second the actual numbers for it. But it was a really big difference.
I think it was just 200 points.
It's still a big difference.
It's still a big difference, yeah. I mean,
there's points.
It's still like, yeah, should you have went? But it's still like you kind of it's a tie-breaking situation. So it's like, I mean, one of you would at least still made it no matter what at the end of the day right there with the records.
Yeah, because we were tied at the same record.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, that was the only thing. But again, we made the decision. I just want to make it really clear because I want the league to see this, that I didn't campaign or anything. Yeah, I was down 200 points, about 212 points or 211 points, something like that.
Yeah.
Gap. And again, she was a higher scoring than the 5, 6, and 7 seed. She was just below you in total scoring this year.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
actually, no, she was even higher than Rob, the 3 seed.
shit. So she's practically should have been a number 2.
if she had won the games.
Yeah.
But again, it also goes by how much you've been scored at, and she's one of the highest scored against teams,
Mm-hmm.
which that's just unlucky. That's why we don't go by that metric. Because if you're not getting scored against in fantasy football, you're not literally playing defense against the people your players and picks. So that's why the tiebreaker in our league is how many points you've scored.
Yeah.
Because because before when we had tiebreaker based on games played against the people, it usually didn't end in 2-way ties. In the past, we used to have like 3-4-way ties from like the 7 seed to the 10 seed or something, where it's like I couldn't explain to a person how they didn't make the playoffs on a tiebreaker when 4 teams tied and 2 teams made it and 2 teams didn't. It just gets too complicated, and I don't feel like doing that type of math. That's the truth. So, getting outside of that, we're going to get into the funness of the league and the things that have gone on this year. We're going to talk about the last few weeks, the playoff games that happened this week, some of the characters and people from the league in that format of how we do things. So first thing, we'll go in the recap of last week. We had the first week of the playoffs. We'll start off with the 1-8 seed. I won 173 to 158 over Julius, which I found out reading the recap. Julius has never beaten me in a playoff game. This is the 4th time we've played in the playoffs. I've beaten him in 2 championship games. Yeah, because I didn't win my 3rd title against him. I forget who I won my 3rd title against, but I won my first 2 against him because we went to the championship back-to-back years in the first 2 years. And again, this year would be the 4th one. We had you beat Ice Acres. Shout out to Sean Bradley, former co-worker of mine that used to work at the stadium, who's won a title. He won a title in his first year, I think. He won the title in his first year, I think. I got to go back and check. From outside of the first year of the league itself, is the only other person to ever do that, which I think is different than like an inaugural season thing. So it's still impressive. But you won that 183 to 83, so you had a 100-point victory over him. It was a 4-5 matchup there. After that, we had the 3-6 seed, Long Neck G, a.k.a. Rob, going against 12th man, which I think is
Brad.
Yes. Yeah. Brad was the only person that voted against the...
You want to put him on blast.
I respect his... Because by the time he voted, I think it was already like a done deal. I looked up a couple times and it was like a 5-0 vote. And like I didn't notice until like I finally looked the last time and it was like, oh, somebody voted against it. So I ain't mad at him. Again, I didn't think... In my heart of hearts, the reason I put the bye week first as the option was because I thought we should have went with the bye week. Mm-hmm. It was just like I was going to make it as a vote. I was just like, yeah, I think we should go with the bye week, but if you want to make it a vote. So I ain't even mad at him. The 10-7 matchup was the Cleveland. I play in a league full of people from a former job that 2 of the guys are from Cleveland. We intermingled the leagues. 3 of us play in both leagues. 2 of them in the Cleveland League. 1 is me. They played each other this week. Casey beat Brett 7-2. Casey moved on. Fun fact about Casey is still in the playoffs in both leagues. Now, I have won both leagues. I've won both leagues since they've been in the leagues. I don't think it counts that I won my first 2 titles before they played. So I've won a championship since I've been in their league, in my league, and a championship in their league. Casey is going to attempt to win both titles in the same year, which that's never happened. We play for money in my league, our league, and in their league, we play for a title belt, which I've won 1 time. So
play for glory.
So hey man, if you're not playing for money, a championship belt's kind of cool.
That's pretty good. Hey,
it used to be a trophy, which I still think is dope.
Yeah.
But when they decided, because the one cool thing about their league is we decide the draft order for the first round based off a Royal Rumble. So he simulates a Royal Rumble and you pick players, and you get to pick like 3 wrestlers, and whoever's your last wrestler gets your spot in the draft order, and whoever wins the Rumble gets the first pick.
Okay.
So
that's a cool way to do it.
So
right.
that tie-in brings it all around. And again, I watch wrestling as a kid. I don't watch it as an adult, but I have respect for wrestling as how much I've watched it as a kid. I'm not somebody who just shits on wrestling. So yeah, that was the first round playoffs. That's how it went. Shout out to everybody in the first round. Again, shout out to Julius. In our league, I consider regular season champions kind of important. It's not a championship, but I feel like it's more important than like the 1 seed in the NFL legitimately. Like when you're the best record in a fantasy league going through a whole season, that matters a lot for how fluky a fantasy season can end. I've won a championship from the 8 seed. I've lost a championship from the 1 seed. I've seen it both ways. So shout out to Julius. Shout out to everybody who made the playoffs. Best record, 11-3. Julius only lost 3 games in the regular season. And again, I have the worst record making the playoffs at 6-8. Average record for the playoffs 8-6. 3 teams made the playoffs with an 8-6 record. And we're gonna get into this week. So this week we got the matchup. Me and James have split the regular season. He beat me in week 3. I beat him in the last week of the regular season. I have been peaking the last few weeks because of players on my team from the Jacksonville Jaguars and help from Kirk Cousins, weirdly. And again, the consistency of having Derrick Henry on my team.
Mm-hmm.
James, how do you want to express your season?
It's been up and down. Picking people off the waiver wire. Running back situation was kind of rough. Christian McCaffrey really was holding it down for me, and Jared Allen.
How's it been having somebody be traded on your team mid-season?
That was kind of rough. I still started him after the fact of the trade. I think I got an L because of starting him after the trade, but he's been pretty consistent after that. He was like, he didn't have a great game because he wasn't like, he was just getting into the just the system. But from there on out, he's been pretty consistent for me, just putting up at least 10 to 20, 30 points or whatever. And Travis Kelce, my tight end, holding it down for me. But from there, it's been pretty rough. I mean, definitely picking off people off the waiver wire. I mean, Juju Smith, inconsistent. Pretty much everybody's been inconsistent. So it's just been kind of luck picking up some people off the waiver wire and just hoping for the best. So it's, I don't know. It's questionable, you know.
Do you think you have it, being legitimate? Because I feel like at some point my scoring has to come down. I can't continue, my average scoring for the last 2 weeks is 175 points.
Yeah.
So that's not normal, especially since there's been years where we've fluctuated from having 12 to 10 teams. When you have 10 teams, getting high scoring like that's kind of easy. Since we've been at 12 teams, I don't expect anybody to break the highest scoring game in league history, which I think I might have. I'm not sure. The Jamal Charles game in 2013 was special, and that was against him in the playoffs. So, yeah, I remember all that stuff. The games against him, I remember. That's the point where I'm like, this is big. Again, I look at certain games in our league, and I will run it down real quick. It's gonna be longer than 10 minutes, Malik. I feel like I've already gotten into that point, but looking at people, I look at all the CCAC guys as rivals. Me, you, Julius, Rob. I know Anthony, Oslo.
Yeah.
So I look at that as rivalries. I look at Anthony and his brother as a rivalry because that's really his connection to the league. I look at the Cleveland boys as a rivalry.
Mm-hmm.
I really only look at Sean Bradley really not having a rivalry. I try to give my game as a chance, but I can't give myself a rivalry to everybody in the league just because I run the league like that.
Mm-hmm.
But the games at this point, since my family's not in the league, my biggest rival is you because we're co-commissioners.
Yeah.
So, and I would say when it comes to the league and how things have gone, Julius would be my biggest rival on the idea that again, I have the championships, he has the record, and honest dominance. I don't know how many I know he's missed the playoffs, but I would assume he's probably made the playoffs more out of anybody else consistently, outside of the people that aren't playing anymore.
Yeah.
So that's something I would say on that. It's just a big way around the league. But getting into the second matchup, we got Long Neck G. Again, I would say, and again, I haven't looked it up, but I would say out of people who have not won a championship, he's the most successful player who's never won a championship. And again, he's a day one member. I look at the day one people, and it's nothing against anybody that's come later, but I look at it the way people talk about the original six in hockey.
Yeah.
Where it's hey man, especially if you were in CCAC when we were coming up with this. My brothers and stuff would have been day one. My brother and my cousin would have been day ones, but they weren't physically there when we were in CCAC coming up with the idea that we were going to do this. Yeah. And the guys that were in CCAC are different from me. And the idea that Rob is, and it got me it's only been me, Julius, and James, I think, who've won titles out of the people that have been in that room. There are still, was until somebody got removed today, or the other day, there were 3 people who hadn't. So Rob and Anthony are the only 2 people that haven't.
Yeah.
And Anthony's been consistent up and down through the years, but again, he's had good teams. Mm-hmm. His playoff, because I don't know if Anthony's ever made, he's made the finals once or twice. But Rob has made the finals the last 2 years, I think. So, Yeah, that's
We're
one.
getting there, yeah.
And then for Casey, and I tried to say it as nicely as I could in the post, and Casey knows I love him. But for my league, he's won titles in the other league, but in my league, he's never really been on the top. There are certain people that have been playing in the league for years who have not had that great of luck. Shout out to Tyler. You've been here since day 1 too, and you try, man. I see it. So, but Casey's best finish in the league history is third. And that happened 2 years ago. Before that third place, I don't think he's ever finished podium before.
Damn.
And he's been here since year 3. So getting this far this year, again, I root for that side of the bracket because, again, I don't really want to have the LeBron James COVID-style title. That's how I look at it if I win this year.
Damn.
And
That's what you calling it?
yeah, that's how I look at it. And for James, I'm just like, James don't need a title.
One more time, I ain't gonna hurt. Shit.
I was mad when I was so cool with this being like I got the most titles. I had 3 and everybody else has had 1. Then Julius was like, I got to get my second title last year, like because Rob couldn't finish the job. Rob finished the job this year. I hope he does. But also some fun facts. At least a fun fact from me when it came to this, and this is why again this is the type of stuff because I look into this stuff and once I notice it, I ain't gonna hide it. So I won the first 2 titles. And then I had a 3-year gap and then won my third title. It's been 3 years since I've won a title. So that part is something I've noticed. Like, I've never gone more than 3 years without winning a title before.
All right, Jordan.
So,
Shit.
And my first title, again, was from the 8 seed with a 6-7 record. I am only one of 2 people to win the championship with a losing record. Do you know who the second person is?
Who?
You.
Oh, really?
Yeah, your 2019 title was a 6-7 record. Which obviously, like, we both have titles with 10-win seasons or 10-team seasons. I've noticed that.
Okay.
But yeah, so hey man, again, I'm just happy to see. Again, we're going year 10. Me and James have been talking about something special. I want to do some type of in-person thing with as many people as we can. I know Anthony's not going to be able to make it. I know your bro's probably not going to be making it. I think he's on the West Coast. But I just want to try to get some in-person thing for the people. Like, thank you guys, man. We've been doing this for 10 years. Mm-hmm. We've had people come and go. Again, what happened this year is the first time we've ever had anybody go this way. Anytime anybody's left, I've known, usually before the end of the season, that they were making the decision to leave. If anybody remembers the season we had F the NFL, playing. F the NFL was my cousin. At that point, he had made the decision he did not like what the NFL was doing anymore, and he was going to finish the season because he had started the season, but he was going to make sure that everybody understood it was F the NFL. It's just what it is. Some fun facts about the league before we get out. Best record of all time, or most points all time, is me, 266, 1 week. Most points in a single game goes to... You know why I'm here. Tyler had a 67-point game out of Tariq Hill 1 year. Yeah, that's a big one. For best, where is that? Hold up. My bad, yo.
Some of us only get that many points in one game sometimes.
It was 67 points. Yeah, like I was looking up. I know Rob had a 50-something point game this year. Like I was looking through some things. You are right. Some people don't have that much luck. There we go. Season. Most points ever in a season was my cousin. He's the only person to crack 2,000 points in a season. He literally had 2,026 points. So he just cracked 2,000.
Damn.
Nobody else has ever cracked 2,000. The lowest points scored in a season by somebody who had the most scored points is 15,000. Always also by my cousin. Must have had a down year in 2016 for that to be the most points scored by a single team. So yeah, like I said, we did
switch to PPR in the last maybe 5 years or so.
No, PPR was a year 2 or 3 thing too. I think.
Oh, really?
I know we went to PPR, but whenever the first time we went to 12 teams at the least.
Okay.
So again, I'm pretty sure 2019 was our last year at 10 teams. We've had a few years where we've lost people and had to wait a year to get up to 12 teams. My personal, and I think James's personal preference is to have 12 teams. It just makes it easier. Again, the idea to me is it makes it real. Like I've played in leagues where nobody misses the playoffs. I've played in 10-team leagues where only 2 teams miss the playoffs. To me, having 4 teams miss the playoffs and having 18 makes it legit. Like, hey man, 4 of y'all aren't going to have a chance to play for this title. where the 8 of us will. I've had some leagues where it's 10 teams and only 6 teams make it, and somebody gets a bye. Bye weeks in fantasy are weird to me because I feel like bye weeks is a chance where you can have one of your biggest weeks of the season and you just were kicking it.
Mm-hmm.
So bye weeks are a weird thing. And I've happened in leagues where people have had bye weeks in the regular season because of how like the teams pan out. So like I said, I'm excited for another fantasy year. I'm excited for another playoff victory against my man next to me.
I don't see that happening.
Since we are playing each other, you have any predictions on the other game? Looking at
the other teams, it's questionable. I don't know. It's like they're pretty.
Also, this is an interesting thing. Technically, I'm the 8 seed. It says 9 on here because of what happened. But the 8 and 7 seeds beat the 1 and 2 seeds because KC was the 7 seed too. So neither the 1 or 2 seeds, the top 2 teams in the standings, neither of them made it out the first round.
I don't know. Rob is really struggling with running backs, but he does have a good team. I'm not too sure if he'll get somebody off the waiver wires, but I don't know. It's one of those. I mean, his receivers ain't too bad. They're going to at least get over 10, 12 points. I don't know. Isaiah, what's his name? Pacho or whatever?
Yeah, I don't know nothing about him either.
He's, I don't know. Him as a backup, that's your second running back. That's going to be rough.
He ain't really got no choice.
Yeah,
his number 1 pick is on IR. Because his number 1 pick had to be Taylor.
Yeah. He might find something on the waiver wire. Hopefully nobody else does something.
And then we're all really thin on who we can put in. Like even looking at on Casey's team, outside of maybe Isaiah McKenzie.
Yeah, he got a.
There's really nobody to switch in. Like I mean, I don't even think Jacoby Myers is that great of a flex, but like I feel like this is where we are this season. Where like I don't feel like there's a ton of injuries in the NFL, but like it's not a lot of depth in fantasy.
No, yeah.
So like having Singletary and Hubbard as your running backs, that's
Chuba Hubbard, yeah.
That's not. I mean, I'm gonna look at Hubbard's stats.
No, I have his other guy.
Yeah, it's not great.
It's not great, and he got more points against the Steelers because I think he got some receiving. So it's not like he's really doing much.
Honestly, looking at these teams,
they're looking neck and neck. Yeah.
I'm going with Rob though.
I would like to see Rob get a title.
I mean, I'd like to see anybody be a new champ. Both of these two are new champs.
Yeah.
Like me and again, he's a 1-time champ. I'm a 3-time champ. Neither of these two have ever won titles. Mm-hmm. So I'm always like I said, that's better to me than having somebody get closer to my record. Sometimes I just gotta be honest with you.
Yeah. I think so next year we'll between the start of the year we're gonna definitely put a poll out and we'll have to like actually sit down and say what are we gonna do for this situation. I think we're gonna try to prevent that from happening again.
Probably, I think it's gonna be more like a hard deadline, like the trade deadline. It's been a little loose. Again, in the past, I've had people not pay us until October. It's never been.
Yeah.
It's never been something where I've had to fight with somebody about.
Yeah.
It. So, and again, we might have to look up some other things, like other rules and things. Like again, we always talk about rules changes in the off season. We've had rules changes. We had a rules changes last off season with the waiver wire discussion. So again, we're always open to changing things. This is not I always say this is not a dictatorship. This is we vote on the things in this league. Yes, me and James run the league. That was just because nobody else wanted to physically run the league. But the idea of it is everybody has a voice in this league. Everybody has an option. I want everybody to understand that I don't want this league to look like me and James are running the league rigged or anything. So yeah, like I said, we will. We're gonna get out of here. This was again the first 10. Get back and check.
First couple more than that.
The first 20. We will get back. Check us out. We got some NFL talk coming up and some music talk coming up in a second. And we might even talk about some viral things we've been seeing on the internet the last few days. But get back with us. It's the first 10, Unfiltered, presented by Hustle, J SKYLINE
and James,
and Malachi behind the boards.